Okay, last time what we did was we made one of our bowls and we made sure that we smoothed it real well, cleaned it up, cut off the top so that it is even along the top. And I'm going to cut off a little bit more there, make it a little bit nicer. Okay, I've got this top done right here. What I did last time, well, actually I did this yesterday, is I started on another bowl. Okay, you can use the same bowl, but because I have two that are exactly the same, I wasn't worried about that. So I started on another bowl and I didn't get a chance to smooth the inside. Remember to smooth the inside. All you have to do is use this spoon, works really well. If you got another tool that you think will work great, then feel free to do that. Okay, so I've got this blended together, and then I like to go back to clean it up a little bit just with my hands. I think it does a good job to clean it up. And remember, a lot of this you may not even see, depending on what face you put in your jack-o'-lantern. I mean, if you have a wide open face, you may see some of this. If you have a narrow face that has narrow gaps, you may not see very much of this. I think it's best to make it as good as you can make it, and just in case you decide to do something that is a little bit more revealing on the inside, and then you can you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about trying to smooth it afterward. Okay, so I'm going to take some of this off here, making it nice. Now you notice my bowls, even though I made my coils a little bit thicker than my pencil, you'll notice that right now they're a similar thickness, maybe a little bit thinner on this one here, and maybe a little thicker on this one here. It's because I made my coils a little thicker, but when I pushed them into the side of the bowl, I pushed them down a little flat. So that's why they're a little bit thinner. That's why I didn't want you to make your coils as thick as a pencil, because if you made it that thick, by the time you got it into your bowl and you squished it down, then it would be really too thin. So make sure that you make your coils about 1.5 size thickness of a pencil, and then when you push them down, it'll be about the size of a pencil. So kind of keep that in mind when you're making it. Okay, so I've made my bowls. Now, when you make your first bowl, if you don't have two bowls, then don't worry about it. You can use the same bowl. And usually in class, that's what we do. We use the same bowl. And here's how you get it out. All you do is you grab your paper towels and you pull it out. And that's all you do to it. Some people get their stuck in there, and I have to kind of work it out a little bit. I don't want to tear it up, but you can get it out. Sometimes they won't be able to get it out, and I'll just like hit it on the table to bend it down, and I could pull this. And sometimes these will break, and that's why they can't get it out. You just have to figure out a way to get it out of there. So I've got two bowls here, and you can see there's still another plastic stage here, and I want them to be plastic. I don't want them to be super hard. A little bit leather hard. Like this one here is a little bit more leather hard. It's a little bit stronger, a little bit more leather hard, and that's perfectly fine. This one's pretty plastic. Okay, and I may have made this one. I made this one before, and it's dried out a little bit, and that's why it's more leather hard. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to attach these two pumpkins together, these two halves. And I can do it a couple different ways. I usually like to use a fork, and I don't think I have a fork with me, so I'm going to do this here. I'm going to take my knife, and I'm going to score along the edges. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take these two pieces and make them into one piece. So it's not quite like glue. Glue is where you have two separate pieces and you have some substance in the middle of it holding those two together. What I really want to do with clay is I want to blend these together so the two parts become one piece. They blend together. And like I said, usually if I have a fork, I'll just use a fork on this, and it works really well because it goes a lot faster. And notice I'm making kind of deep cuts here. It's because I want these to be blended together. Okay, so they're fairly deep. I got to do the same thing on this. I usually put these upside down because they don't collapse if they're upside down, or you can leave them in the bowl. if you have two bowls that are same and you're using this, two different bowls, you can kind of leave it in the bowl until you score it, and then you're not making it collapse. Now, here's the biggest problem with this. Some people, their clay is a little too wet or a little too dry, and this causes a big problem because if it's too wet, it tends to want to collapse. And if it's too dry, when they join the two pieces, they're really too dry to join together. And it's a big problem. Okay, now I've got my two pieces. I need a little bit of slip. And to get some slip, what I can do is I can just take a couple scraps of my clay. It could be even the driest clay. And I'm going to add a little bit of water in there. And I'm going to get a little messy. Okay? Because I'm going to take this clay and I'm going to try to smash it up and make it into slip. And you can already see as I get it in here, and you could use a tool if you want to mix it up. You could use a fork in there to, break it up. You need to create some slip. And this is the best way to do it if you at home. At school here, I've already made the slip for you and I put it in these bottles and it makes it really easy, to use. But at home, you're just going to have to make your own slip. And that's just, you just take water and clay and put it together and you mix it up. And so I'm trying to mix it up so I have a gooey clay-like substance here. Okay. Once I feel like I've got it, this one's a little bit thick still, but I think it's probably okay. Once I have some slip, I want to start putting slip on the edges. So I'm going to put slip on the edges of my project here. Got a big kind of fat piece there, but I think it'd be okay. And I'm putting this slip, and you're going to get a little dirty, so don't even think that you can't get your hands dirty. You're going to get dirty on this. At school, you can stay a little cleaner, like I said, because I got the slip made for you. But since we're at home, then that is not an option there. I don't have. So I've got slip on this here, and if I had a lot of slip, I could put slip on here too. It wouldn't hurt, but I didn't make enough really to do that. I can try to scrape it out some, maybe get a little bit more, and put some on here, but it's not as important here to get the slip on. Usually if I had it, I might put it on both sides. Or, you can also just, this side here, if it's a little hard, you can put just a little bit of water on it for now. And then with this side, with the slip on it, it should be good. Okay. So now I've got the two bowls, and I need to put this bowl on top of that bowl. Okay. Usually what I like to do is the bowl that is a little bit softer, I like to leave inside this bowl. And if I put my paper towels back in there, I could push it back in. Okay, and because this one's a little bit softer, it needs more support. And then I want to pull the paper towel out of the way. I want to take this one out my bowl. And again, sometimes it's hard to get it out, but you have to just work it out. Okay, and I want to take this bowl and put it on top of this one. And I want to try to line up the edges the best I can. If they're a little bit off, it won't be that big of a deal. You can fix that. But they should be. I mean, if you use the same bowl or use the same size bowl, they should fit. And I've got a little edge here that's not quite right, so I'm going to change it, pull it off, and try it again. So it should fit pretty close if you use the same bowl. Okay, so I got it on there pretty good, so I'm going to push it down some to push those in together. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull it out again. Now you see what I've got? I've got a whole thing together. Now this is where I like to use my popsicle stick a lot, is I like to come over here and blend these together. Don't push it so hard that you're pushing the bowl in. You don't want to make a big bad area of where you pushed it in too much and you got a big dent. You want to just be careful and slowly work these together. So this is pretty good. I probably could work on it a little bit more, but I'm in pretty good shape here. You can see all the coils. If I did a good job of pressing the coils in, you're only gonna see little lines like this. Some people that didn't press their coils in enough might have bigger edges. Like this is kind of a big area right here, so that's not very good, okay? So now what I can do is I can start paddling it. So I wanna show you here, I've got this ice scraper, and we got a whole bunch of these at school, and you can see I've used them quite well. And this really works well for a paddle, or if you had a wide piece of wood, you know, maybe 2 or 3 inches wide, that would work really good too. And I like that better on the bigger things when I'm paddling something bigger. Before, when we paddled those pinch pots, the ruler is better because those are smaller. But if you look right here as I paddle this, you know, I'm starting to get kind of the little lines are kind of disappearing, and I'm shaping it. If it looks too much like an egg, you can kind of fix that, make it look more round. Or if it's more round and you want to make it look like it more an egg shape, you can change that by paddling it. So the great thing about paddling is you can change the shape of your pumpkin, and it helps smooth it and get rid of any lumps or bumps in there, okay? If you've got a big dent in here, just try to avoid the dent for a while. As it hardens up, you might be able to stick something in there and pull the dent out. I have some students that have that problem. If it's a really bad dent, I'll say, why don't we just cut it apart and you can make a new bottom or make a new top or something like that. Okay, so now I have this, but I've got all these lines in here, and I really don't want those lines, okay? I've got some choices here. I could try to blend these together. I could try to take my tool, whatever tool you have, and I can try to blend these together. Now remember, we don't want to create air bubbles. So you're trying to push the clay together. You're not trying to put clay over the top of it. You're trying to push it together. And you can use a tool like this to try to blend these together. Now, if you have a rather deep crack here, what you may want to do, and you have to be super careful about this, so I'm telling you right now, is you could make some watery slip, and you could kind of put some slip in there, but you got to make sure that you're not covering something up. You want the slip to get nice and deep in those gaps, you know, all the way in there. So if I wanted to, I could take a little bit of clay, and again, I can throw it in a bowl and put some water in there, and then while I'm working, you know, I can let it dissolve, and it'll dissolve in, you know, a little bit of time and make some better slip. I got a fork when I was in there. I can take a fork and I kind of smash it up some. And I can make some slip, and just as I'm working and smoothing, just let this soak in here and dissolve. And then I can use this in some of the bigger cracks. But remember, you got to be really careful. You got to be extremely careful that you are not creating an air pocket, putting a piece of clay over a gap and leaving air in there. You got to fill it up with slip if you do that. So I'm going to let this kind of sit for a little bit and soak while I work on this. So I can get all the little cracks, you know, with this tool here. I can blend them over, and remember, I'm trying to push them together. I'm not trying to create any air pockets. And so if you think you're creating air pockets, stop. We'll try something else. Okay, and you can see I'm starting to get those kind of filled up, and it's starting to look better. Now, as I get these filled up and I'm kind of making marks on the clay, I can go back and I can paddle it a little bit to smooth it up and shape it up a little bit. And so if I made any marks or lumps in there, I can kind of clean it up. And you see how much just in this area here, it's much better. Now I can just kind of turn this a bit. Remember, put the paper towels in your bowl. You don't want to get it stuck in there. I got some big gaps here. So in a case like this, if I have some big gaps, I might be able to take some of my slip and put it on here. And remember, make sure that if you're using slip to fill up some of the big gaps, that you are really careful about making sure that you're not like putting the clay over the top. It's got to fill up the whole gap. Okay, so if I really have some big gaps and it's a little bit messed up, I can try to take some slip and smooth it on here. Okay, if I have big gaps. If it's small gaps, you should be able to blend it together and paddle it together with no problem. But here I can take a little bit of slip and I can blend it, and you notice I'm pushing it in. It's not like a piece of clay, it's like slip. You can see the difference. Okay, I don't want to put a piece of clay over the top of these gaps. I want to put slip. See how that goes. And I can kind of smooth this out with my knife a little bit, but then I need to let it dry a little bit so that I can paddle it. Now, if you have a crack that opens up, let's say you're working on it, you're paddling it or whatever, and you have a big gap open up. Let's assume it's like a gap like this. I'm gonna make a fake crack. And you're gonna come to me and say, Mr. Rob, look at this big crack I've got, you know, in my pot. Look at that big crack. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So here's what we do, is usually I take a knife. You guys, that's something backing up here to my window. Delivery truck. So I take my knife and I jam it in here. So I'm jamming my knife in there, and if it's like dented in, I'll try to pull it out a little bit with my knife, kind of bend it out, pull it out. Then what I'll do is I will get some slip from my little slip bowl, and I'll try to get some slip in there. Okay, and then I'm going to push it back together and try to blend it back together. I would never suggest put a hole in there just like I did, but sometimes your stuff cracks and you have to kind of address that. You have to score the inside, and look how I'm kind of pushing it together, and I'm kind of come back and blend it together over the top with some nice smooth slip there, and I think I should be okay. So I let it sit for a little bit, and it probably should be fine. I'll continue to smooth it and paddle it. So I'm going to work my way all the way around this thing, smoothing it with a knife, I guess. And if I have big gaps, adding a little bit of slip and pushing it in there. And notice I'm working it. I don't just put it on the top and say, okay, I'm done. I continue to work this, and you will get better results if you take the time that's necessary to do a good job. After I get all this done, I'm going to come back and paddle it. But as I paddle this, I'm tapping nicely and shaping it. And if it's a little bit too wet, it may come off on your paddle and it may kind of damage your clay a little bit. But if it's just dry enough, you should be able to shape it. And so mine's just a little too wet to paddle because I have that slip on there. So it's not going to work. I'm probably going to continue working all the cracks and getting rid of all these cracks first. And then the next time we meet, I'm going to spend some time paddling this so that it's nice and smooth and round, the round shape that I want it to be. Okay, you guys, that is it for today.